How y'all doing? How y'all doing? It's June 13th. Whew. And I was sitting outside with my laptop. And you know what? It's too hot to be sitting outside with my laptop. If you sitting outside, which I hope you are, and I hope you get to, if that's your jam, it certainly is mine. But what I wanted to talk about is summertime, summertime, summertime. I was sitting here thinking about how, over the course of my 25 years of working in independent schools, what my summertime schedule looked like. So I'm going to share some stories with you that I hope you'll enjoy. Let's think about my first summer when I was, for so many years, I was wandering around like I was in a desert. Like, what in the world is this environment that I found myself in? I'm a black professional for the first time, honestly. I had worked jobs before, but I was never um, had a career job. That was not what I had been doing before I stepped into schools. And when I stepped into working in schools, I took on a lot of responsibility early on. After my internship ended, I was I became the chair of the computer science department. Small department. I mean, I didn't have a lot of. I had just finished my computer training, and so I took this job. And that first summer, I was glad school got out. I was glad for the kids to leave. I was working in a boarding school, but I wasn't living on campus at the time. So it was a lot to figure out as a public school kid who was now working in private schools. I hear people, this is a common refrain, is that the politics of working in private schools are something too that you have to learn, and I agree wholeheartedly. There are different. It's a different culture. It's just a different culture. So after about 3 years of working in private schools, I was tapped to be the director of the summer academic program. And as I said, when I took this job, I was getting a divorce, and I had my mother living with me, helping me to raise my two children, and I needed the extra money. So I was like, well, I don't really know if y'all will help me. They guaranteed that I would have as much support as I needed, and so that's what I did. I joined. I agreed to be the director of the summer academic program, and I learned along the way. Just doop doop doop. I had to hire staff. I had to make sure the curriculum followed along with what we had been doing as a school community, to make sure that our brand was not just put on anything. And during the hiring process, I didn't even have teachers who worked at my school during the school year because they wanted a vacation. So they didn't want to keep, they go to the history department and say, hey, you've been teaching history all year. Want to do it for 5 weeks in the summer? The answer oftentimes was, no, thank you. I will be down the shore. So I would hire generally local teachers. I was close to Princeton University, so I hired teachers from there, and that have some of the good relationships that I could still continue to have today with meeting those folks. So as I said, I did that for 9 years, and that was through my son. After my second year at my school, my son became a student because the school started at sixth grade. So then I'm a faculty parent on top of that, right? And so for those 16 years, so 14 of those 16 years, I was also a faculty parent. So, faculty parent, then on the curriculum committee because I'm a department chair. I am now running the summer academic program, which means I don't get my summers off really because either I'm recruiting teachers or I'm trying to get students in. I'm planning activities. It's a boarding school, so I've got that part, res life to deal with also. And then, so my son graduated after the 7 years. And then my daughter became a student. And the year she became a student, that summer is when I quit doing the summer, working the summer program because I knew I had seen how fast I may have my timeline off a little bit because I know I did that for 9 years. Anyway, yeah, I think that's right. And then one of those summers, I quit during the summer academic program because I saw how fast my kids were growing up, and I was missing because you're working. And I wanted to have a summer off. And that summer, my daughter and my son's off at college doing his thing, and my daughter and I drove across the country. And that was fun. So, and then, did I work anymore? I left that school when she graduated. So 16 years were done. And then when you leave a boarding school, by that I had moved on campus. So now my housing is tied into my employment, which is quite interesting. Let me tell you, because when you decide you're leaving a school, or when you're leaving a school, you take another job, whatever, you have to move. That year, I decided that I was going to downsize. My daughter was going to college. My son was already launched, and I was going to downsize. So when I left that school, I got rid of most of my stuff, and I rented a 10 by 10 storage unit and headed down I-95. I was leaving and ended up stopping in Baltimore because a friend of mine was celebrating her birthday and invited me to come and celebrate her birthday with her. Ended up getting a job at a private school in Baltimore that I worked for 1 year. Then I lived in an apartment in a townhouse there in Baltimore, in Towson, actually. And then I went back to boarding school. That was a day school that I was in, and I was working actually in the middle school because I'm teaching computer classes. Then I went to a school in Massachusetts, had a lovely time. So much fun there. That I did that for 4 years. And that process, that was a majority boarding school, meaning the majority of the folks lived on campus. And I lived in the boys' dorm. They'd asked me, because I was doing diversity work at that time. Then I started doing diversity work full time. And they asked me, when you're thinking about diversity, thinking about gender diversity, would you have a problem living in a boys' dorm, being a dorm parent? Not at all. I only have brothers in my family, so it fit me very well. Even though when I was at my first school, I worked in the girls' dorm and was a dorm head for the girls' dorm. But now I'm in a boys' dorm, all good, no problems. Just too cold up in New England. It's too cold, and I decided I wanted to leave after 4 years. So, and I wanted to go to California. Now you got to pack up and move across the country, which I did. I did that, and I had so much fun. That was an interesting transition. The one thing about the school in New England, I worked with more Black people, Black professionals, Black educators in different departments than I had ever worked with before. And now I'm almost 20 years into my career, 18, 19 years into my career. Before I had that first experience of working with more than 2 other Black people, Black professionals. Then I moved to California and I worked at a bigger school. And working at that school, the challenge there was that the school was so big. I think we had 12, 1,300 kids. And when I think about that school, it makes me think about graduation, right? And as we're here at this summer season, if you will, you have just experienced graduation. Your students have, some of you, if you were at a pre-K through 12 and you were there the whole time, you saw them grow up, and now you're launching them out into the big world to head to college or the next phase of their lives. And so the people that I believe this Our Own Lane community will help, and the reason I I say Black professionals who work in private schools, because you could work in admissions. You might work in the development office. You could be a classroom teacher. You could be a department chair or a division head. Any of those lanes, any of those spaces that you find yourself in, if you feel that it would be helpful for you to also be in a space, in a space with other Black professionals who speak the language that you understand because you are in this culture, it's kind of nice to be in a community with people who understand. For example, I'll tell you about a time when I chaperoned a group of students and had my colleagues, and we all went down to Nashville, Tennessee for the People of Color Conference and Student Diversity Leadership Conference. While we were down there, there was Brian Stevenson has his Equal Justice Initiative, and there's a museum that he has curated, and it's just a wonderful experience to take young people and take anybody to go and have this experience and learn more about the culture of the enslaved people and hear their stories. And again, we're at the People of Color Conference. Students have participated in Student Diversity Leadership Conference. And so we took some extra time after the conference ended. And I didn't get tickets to go on the bus when the folks were booking spaces on the bus. But I didn't let that stop me. I rented a van for my little cohort of kids because I had told them this is what we were going to do. So whether it filled up or not, you always have to have another, how are you going to do this when you promise the kids something? And so we drove down behind the bus. We knew they were going, so we just followed them. I remember stopping at a rest stop, and someone who knew me saw me, and they were like, wait, you weren't on the bus with us? I was like, no, we're driving behind you. And I remember them remarking something along the lines of course you are. Because they know I make things happen. And that is also the beauty of this Our Own Lane community, where I want to help us to navigate these spaces, talk amongst each other, not downgrading, downplaying, feeling bad about the career decisions that you have made, but where's the joy, man? Let's have some fun. Let's be in a community like it was at the People of Color Conference, of people who understand the language that you're speaking. Whether you work, it doesn't matter what part of the school, what department you're working in. The goal is to be in community with other Black professionals and who understand that as I'm sitting here June 13th thinking about you, going, whew, that 2025-2026 school year was something, huh? But it's time to put it to bed because, especially if you're a 12-month employee, I know in the schools that I worked in, July 1st was the start of the new fiscal year. Might not be fiscal year, but the new school year. So when I was doing that, moving from school to school, I would end my school year in June, have to pack up and be ready to be at my new place July 1st. Not a lot of people understand that. And it doesn't matter if you're moving across town to a new school, or as I said, from New England to California. Still got to be there July 1st. And hope that when you get there, the people who are already there, who were there last year and the year before and the year before, are there to greet you. Because my experience has been, or was, that was not often the case, because they too were looking to get some downtime. Because if the school year, if the employees started coming back, or the new hires were hired as of July 1st, so they're onboarding and all of that stuff while you're still trying to finish this old school year. The grades and everything have gone out, but the planning, right? Whose office needs to be split up in a different configuration? Whose apartment needs to be painted? Who moved out of one apartment and needs to move into another apartment? This is dorm life, right? Who's moving to a different dorm? All these things have to be accounted for, because very quickly August is going to be upon us, which brings me to my last point, and that has to do with when we're going to officially start our own lane. Our meetings, our actual meetings, will start in August, the first week in August. So I'm going to give you time to rest and all of that stuff and pay for your membership. Whether you're in the accelerator lane, which is going to be a small cohort of 24 professionals, could be in different departments, different schools. You might be in the same school, but what I also want to promise you is that I am building a community where you can have psychological safety. In whatever way that looks, I'm trying my best to make sure that if I've got 3 people from the same school, they are not in the same cohort. So you will feel safe that the people that you're talking to, when we do our community norms and we make our agreements, that you're talking to those folks and you feel safe to share, some of your pain points and things like that, so that we can help you solve those. And then my Pacesetter lane is for one-on-one mentorship that I will be offering, and I will work with you one-on-one. And we're gonna, with that cohort is a little smaller, so we're gonna have 6 folks in that cohort, because I can only manage so much, and I'm not spreading myself too thin, so that I can give you a quality product. And there will be times throughout the year, throughout the school year, that cohort of 6 that we'll get together and we'll talk through some things, and you'll get to see each other and know each other. And so right now, again, join the on-ramp, figure out accelerator lane, Pacesetter lane, because those 2 lanes are definitely going to be deeper. This YouTube channel will stay up, and I will record sessions, and I'm a talker, so I got things to share. 25 years, 5 different schools. Now our own lane is here for you, and I hope to see you back here next week. Bye. Enjoy your summer.